This is the RIT Nerds Podcast, episode number 5, with your hosts tonight, Ron Burgess Jr., Nathan Pocock, and myself, Jim Kenny. And tonight, this is the COVID catch-up episode. So how you guys doing, man? It's been a while since we talked. If I remember, it's been probably almost a month since we've been face-to-face here on Zoom trying to knock some podcasts out.
Yeah, just keeping busy, trying to stay healthy. It's work has been kind of hell. Every call is a COVID call. You know, we're one of the leading towns in the state first to have COVID, and it spread pretty rapidly throughout the town. So everything got put on the good kibosh really quick. You know, training stopped, doing public safety stopped, not public safety, public events and stuff like that. You know, new protocols seems like every day. The administration was trying to, wrap their head around it with EMS and figure out what protective gear we actually needed. So it was a little rough, and it still is. It seems like it's still changing, but I think we finally have the whole system dialed in now for our PPE and our response.
That's good. Man, I think my last day at work was March 18th before I started to get sick. So I've been out for over a month. I got tapped out early. So I don't know what really is going on at work. I hear some stories from everybody, but I don't think it's hit us very hard yet. But what are some of the things, Ron, that you said things seem to be kind of straightening out a little bit or becoming more, not normal, but just not changing as frequently? How are you guys running your responses?
Well, at first we were every call was getting screened by dispatch, and it was either, yes to all the questions or yes to some of the questions. And, it would basically help determine our level of PPE needed. So the hard part there is people didn't know, you call for difficulty breathing because you have pneumonia or you're actually having trouble breathing, and it's getting answered as a positive COVID call. So now you're full, gown, goggles, booties, gloves, N95, So they're finally weeding through the calls and asking pertinent questions to really help us, determine our level of PPE. The hardest part for me was, going to the scenes and asking questions from a distance, and not saying rushing in, but not making that initial patient contact if there was somebody else at the home. The first call I got when this kind of blew up for us was a 3-day-old difficulty breathing. So, right out the door, we're already moving, and it's like I'm trying to ask the questions as we're running into the house to take care of this infant. So luckily the infant was okay, but just stuff like that, you're trying to mentally fight yourself. You're like, this is an infant having trouble breathing. What do I do? Am I staging outside and waiting for EMS? But I can't do that mentally, or morally. So it's like I'm putting the best PPE on I can, go in, try to do the best I can for the patient. So, but it definitely has gotten better. It's gotten smoother. EMS has gotten more routine with their setups. So working hand in hand with them really worked out pretty well.
That's good. I I forget sometimes the systems that I work in. Well, the system I work in and the one I volunteer in, everybody is in, EMS and fire are all the same. So I forget when I think about it that, fire at a lot of places is not the same as EMS. So you guys may be getting there way ahead of the game, and then
absolutely
those decisions. Yeah, it's I know I've heard some stories from work where people were basically lying to dispatch or the call takers when they were asking those questions because they were scared that 911 wouldn't send EMS to them because they were positive or had symptoms. So we had guys that were running CPRs that were all of a sudden at, they're neck deep in it with normal CPR PPE on, and then they find out 10 minutes later that this person had symptoms, positive, not positive case per se, but had symptoms of COVID, and they're not wearing the right PPE because we were trying to only use it for cases that we knew of so that you're not wasting it. Everyone says that it seems to be same as you, kind of straightening itself out. Things are getting a little smoother, but how's things up with you, Nathan? I know you've been sending us some messages about going to a bunch of fires lately too.
Yeah, our system. I mean, like everybody, it hasn't hit us to the same generally as the city and province, and I think generally as a country, we haven't gotten hit the same as the Eastern Seaboard down there. We flattened the curve. That fucking, I hate fan words or catchphrases, but
Yeah,
everybody's saying it. But we seem to have really slowed down with new cases and everything like that. They seem to mostly be like old folks' homes and stuff, which is one place you don't want it. Where it hit, I mean, we've got a massive homeless thing in this city, situation going on, which has been a big worry for a long time because there's massive tent cities that are just pretty much completely unchecked. Because how do you? So if it gets into there, it's wildfire, right? So states of emergency, both citywide and province-wide and everything, have all been declared and all that stuff. So they have the right to take over hotels. Some community centers are being taken over to try and give shelter and spread some of those high-risk groups out and stuff like that. As for work, we run different systems here too. Our ambulance is actually a provincial service, but fire is municipal service. So it gets real confusing real fast, especially when you get to the politics. It's two different unions as well, and they don't always see eye to eye, unfortunately. But so we, one of the first things they did was they pretty much stopped us from going to most medical calls to lower risk. So we're only going to what they call like purple calls, which are pretty much your cardiacs. But we recently got red calls back because overdose deaths also spiked the minute they did that. So we're dealing with an overdose crisis for years now. So when they did that, we saw a spike in that. So we finally got, as of 11 p.m. last night, overdose calls back. We're going from there. We switched schedules. We were on 10-hour days, 14-hour nights, 96 hours off. Now we're on 24s to limit crew activities. The shift stuff at Hall has completely changed. Now we used to have soft starts. We kind of came in at 6:30 in the morning. You'd sort of putt around, hang out with the off-going crew, have a coffee, 7 o'clock to your rig checks, and then sort of sort everything out for the day, and then haul cleanup at 8:30. Now it's you come in at 7:50. The other crew leaves right away. You get to your uniform instantly, and then start decontaminating everything from pretty much the shingles on the roof to the bottoms of your shoes, it seems. But and nothing else can happen to us. Done. Training's done. Inspections are done. We can train in-house, which we have been. My crew's been good about that. We've been getting 2 to 3 drills in a shift when we can. But yeah, we've noticed. But yesterday was actually not too crazy of a shift. We didn't have any fires last 24 I just got off of, but we've had, the city in general's had a 6% increase in structure fires, 20% increase in outdoor fires. And then police is saying break-in and entries are now spiking pretty hard. It's changed a lot for us around here. There's not any confirmed cases of our members yet. We had one admin worker get confirmed. But that admin worker had a family member in one of the homes, one of the nursing homes that had it. So our staffing seems to be fine that way. We were all prepped and we brought our prevention workers back into Hall and everything, ready to lose a bunch of staff like crazy and be running potentially down to a 3 platoon instead of a 4 platoon system and all that, which we're still in place for it. But so far, we're actually fine that way. Nobody seems to have gotten it. We're full PPE for everything now, which is Tyvek suits, goggles, face pieces, face masks, and gloves for any cardiacs or anything like that. We get
Wow.
off a rig like that now.
Do your Tyvek suits, they're normally the ones you toss afterwards, right? Are you guys still tossing them, or are you deconning them?
It is all based on contact. So, I mean, I've been away from work for the last, 10 hours? So there's probably about 15 new SOGs out in that last 10 hours.
Yeah.
That seems to be how it works. But
Yeah.
like Ron says, the hardest part is you're so used to, I mean, one of the things we do is patient comfort, right? You want to get in and hold the person's hand and take the pulse and have that chat and be human, right?
Right.
But now we're sending one guy in full gear from 20 feet away to have a conversation and maybe go and do those things if they're dying. But if they're not, then we don't get any closer than that, right? And we'll leave everybody else out. And so if you don't get in contact, we reuse those suits.
Okay.
Yeah. Same pretty much with us.
Yeah, it's meant to be your discretion, right? If you end up doing full CPR or it's an OD or any of that stuff, then the suit's going to get tossed. But because of the limited stuff, we're gauging on you. It's up to you essentially to gauge whether you could have contaminant on you, whether or not.
Gotcha.
Right. So you're to restrict as much chance of you getting contaminant on you as possible, and then go. I mean, we're trying to change other things. I mean, you still got to do your alarm bells and everything else.
Yeah.
So like, what do you do there, right? You're not wearing a Tyvek suit and everything for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wear rubber gloves now when I go on alarm bells calls. I know some guys are wearing N95s. I'm out on that because I've been to enough alarm bells that turn into fires. I don't need another thing I got to do. But I'm wearing rubber gloves to go through now as you're opening all the doors in the apartment and everything and doing the alarm panel. Chuck those off and wash my hands, whatever, before I start taking my packing mat off at the rig. But
Yeah.
The last shift or 2 shifts ago, we had a fire, and the first crew in, the guy was wearing goggles, N95, like our normal thing, because it was a psych facility, like kind of like an assisted living, and the sprinklers kept the fire in check. And he walked in, he said sprinklers were coming down, knocked the goggles off his face. N95 was saturated, so he went straight to masking up, as soon as he found out there was an active fire. So it definitely delayed some response in that means, but it's a whole new concept to like just take in and understand mentally.
Yeah.
Like you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, I'm just putting my 95 on, put some gloves on and goggles, and it's like, if we're going to work, we're popping doors and all of a sudden we come in the smoke, it's a whole other ball game. So
and that's still our primary job, and
yeah,
fire's going to kill you before that does.
Right. Well, I mean, the hardest thing is, our administration is leaning heavily on us to do the right thing, and they're trying to prepare us to do the right thing, and it's an adaptation we have to work with. And I think the guys are overall taking a good stance to it, because like anything in the fire service, there's always resistance before there's acceptance. So, but it's been better than I thought. It just took a couple weeks to catch up.
Yeah, there was a definite need for education that we definitely felt the growing pains of. It didn't help that, like I said, new information was coming out every 10 seconds, it felt like.
Right.
But just getting guys comfortable with it too, like understanding that it's a fluid-borne thing. It's not airborne. This is your proper things, and right.
So when you say it's fluid-borne and not airborne, do you mean it's airborne in droplets? It's in fluid.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not floating around in the air. You're not breathing it like pollen coming from a tree. It's got to be.
Like I said, I've been out since March 18th. That was my last day at work. And for the first 3 weeks that I was out, I was between the news, which gets old because it's the same stories over and over again, and then just surfing the internet for actual medical journal articles and stuff. I was staying pretty on top of it for those 3 weeks, but since pretty much the day we brought our son home from the hospital, I have barely checked the news just because life at home right now is between a newborn and a 2-year-old is sleep whenever anyone else is sleeping and whenever you can find, quiet away from all the noise.
Right.
But one of the things I was hearing, Nathan, was that, and this was maybe a week ago. So if there's new stuff out there, I haven't seen it yet. But they were saying that it could still stay in the air. Like they're saying it's in the droplets, but there was a scientist, doctor, I can't remember, but he's saying that it's an aerosol. So yes, it's in heavier droplets, but like the aerosol will stay, like your perfume, right? If you spray perfume in the air, that's an aerosol, and you
Mhm.
can walk through that mist, 10 seconds after someone sprayed it. When you walk in and smell it, that's you walking through that mist that's still in the air. So I don't know. So yes, it's not airborne in the sense of strictly being airborne, but it's just crazy times because the only knowledge we're getting is over time,
Yes.
every, like you
Right.
guys said, and I feel for you guys, because at least for me, while we have a lot of, crazy things going on in our household, um I don't have to deal with work right now. So I don't have to deal with the changing SOPs and informational bulletins and whatever comes out every hour on the hour on the new procedure. And if you miss the email, then you're not following the right procedure for the day and all that. So in one aspect, it's been really crazy at home between actually having had it and then bringing our son into the world while we had it in the household. Um, but on the other aspect, it's been nice to be able to say, like, family first. I love my job, but it's been nice to be able to stay home at this point and deal with making sure that the family's staying, getting back to being healthy and staying healthy from here and not have to be keeping current with everything at work.
For sure. Well, I mean, that's why my family's where they are, right? The minute school was canceled and everything like that, and my kids weren't going back to school. It was before they did all the travel bans. They went out to grandma and granddad's, and they
That's
got
cool.
3 acres of land in the middle of nowhere where there's only 50 people in the entire town, and they're surrounded by logging roads and beach and rivers and lakes, and caught a couple of trout last week and building tree forts. And
I love the pictures you put up, man. They're it looks pretty cool up there.
Yeah, it looks like you
Someday,
guys are having a good time.
yeah.
it's a good spot. Good spot.
I'm jealous when I see you guys fishing and hiking and stuff like right out of the backyard. I'm pretty jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a gorgeous trail literally 2 minutes up the road from my house, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, there's only so much parking, so if you get there, you get there, type deal.
yeah,
But
yep.
like, if you see one person on your whole hike for an hour or two, it'd be pretty hard pressed.
That's cool.
So it's really nice to have that right down the street to take the dog out or the kids out.
Nice.
No good fishing though, like Nathan's got.
I couldn't imagine trying to do that at home right now. I mean, I don't know what we'd do with the kids. My backyard here in the city is only, geez, I got a couple of raised vegetable patches and a dining room table and a barbecue. I mean, but my backyard also backs onto 10 acres of city park,
Oh,
but
nice.
that city park is closed. So,
Yeah.
Right.
so if they're home, all I've got is the backyard right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I'd manage the two of them in a backyard right now. I don't know how we'd entertain them here. I don't know how people are doing it. I know our friends nearby are going absolutely crazy with trying to find stuff to do with the kids.
Yeah. The hard part for me is honestly the kids homeschooling and stuff, the way I've learned, like especially math compared to what they've learned now, it's like I'm like, just divide it and multiply it, and like, and they're like, no, that's not how you do it. I'm like, what do you mean? So that's been an uphill battle.
This is your chance, Ron. This is your chance to say,
Yeah,
screw the new way. I learned it the
exactly.
old way. I'm just fine, and I'm going to show you this is the way we're going to do this at Dad's homeschool.
Yeah,
Bust out your abacus.
Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, I feel bad for the kids because they can't see their friends.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I think that's bothering them. They're not having that social interaction all day, and we go outside, we ride the quads and the dirt bikes, and play baseball. And it's not warm enough to swim here yet, but you know, I think they just miss that interaction, even though they don't think about it like us adults do. So
Yeah. It's
That's my kids.
it definitely some days feels like Groundhog Day because there's
yeah,
not a lot of change. Um, yeah, there's not. I'm glad that our kids are just so young that one they're not going to remember this if everything ends up going back to normal like we expect and hope it will in the next couple months. um, they won't remember it. They'll only hear us tell stories of it. And
Right.
there's not a lot of teaching. It's just normal stuff. It's just the 2-year-old, try and keep her entertained, make sure she doesn't hurt herself. And
that's what my wife says about me.
yeah. Oh yeah, same. Now's not a good time to be in the ER, but
Yeah, absolutely.
um yeah, it's just a trip to the grocery store. I went to the grocery store last week for the first time. Well, shit, for the first time in probably 3 weeks, because once my symptoms kicked up and I was pretty sure that I had COVID, um, I didn't go anywhere. And then once we got tested, they told us like you're not allowed to go anywhere. Like, okay, cool.
Awesome.
But it's not like the cops are circling the streets making sure you stay in your house. But to be respectful of everybody, you're like, no, I'm not going anywhere. And then once it came back positive, then you're like, well, when can I go somewhere? And they're like, well, thankfully, I think on like day 4 or 5 of me having symptoms, I started writing down every day, basically charting my own symptoms every day. And then my wife, we're pretty sure that she had it before I did because her symptoms were worst like 2 days before I even felt anything. And then her symptoms were gone within a few days. And see, I got it. My first symptoms were on the 18th of March. And then a week later, we went and got tested, and her test came back negative. And we think that either one, it's a false negative, which we're hearing there's like a 20% chance that it's a false negative, or she hadn't had symptoms for 3 or 4 days. So there's a chance that she had cleared it and she was healthy again and just came up negative. Yeah, so anyways, I hadn't been to the grocery store. I finally, after, talking to different people, the health department called me a bunch of times, and the different doctors between the OBGYN she had in the hospital and the pediatrician and my doctors, like, when I feel better, when can I start doing things? Like, well, and their own timelines and the CDC's timelines are just like, 72 hours after your fever and 7 to 14 days after your symptoms started. I'm like, I'm on week number 4 and I haven't had a fever since week number 1, but my cough got much better, but I still had a cough for a couple days that wouldn't go away, but it felt like a different cough. Instead of being like down in my chest, it felt like it was one of those throat coughs.
Yep.
But they're like, yeah, well, you're still coughing, so I wouldn't go anywhere. Like, okay. So waited a couple more days, and But the grocery store was just, one, it was cool to get out of the house again, and two is I never thought I'd see the day where you're waiting outside the grocery store, everybody has a mask on, and you're 10 feet from each other. It's just
Weird.
crazy. Yeah, in our neighborhood, it's been pretty normal in the neighborhood. You know, people are out going for walks. They keep their distance from everybody, but if you just were walking through our neighborhood right now, you would have no feeling or sensation that the world is like the way it is right now. But
Right.
yeah, uh, and thank God for technology. Not only do we get to sit here and do our podcasts and actually see each other through Zoom, but I got to watch my son being born over FaceTime because I wasn't allowed in the hospital. So
Oh,
That's
at
awesome.
1:30 in the morning 2 weeks ago, my wife and I were FaceTiming, you know, through the delivery, which was interesting. It was weird to a half an hour after he was born at 2 o'clock in the morning while she's getting carted off into the recovery room with him, and I turn the lights off and go to bed. And I was telling her, I was like, you're never going to let me live this down forever.
Yeah.
Whatever argument we have is always going to come back to, you weren't even there. You're right.
Yep.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
The hospital was really cool though. They said that they were pretty slow for anything COVID. But they actually put an extra nurse in the delivery room with my wife just to hold the iPad. So that was really
Wow.
cool. Yeah,
Oh,
it
cool.
was. They were great. They took really good care of her, and I kind of figured that it was going to go that way because he was due March 31st and he was born April 8th. So that's like 3 weeks after my symptoms started. So my wife and I thankfully had a lot of time to sit down and talk and go through the different scenarios, which there really was only two or three. One, they either were going to let me in or they weren't, you know? And then if they weren't going to let me in, would they let in friends? Because our family is so far away and everyone's not only on lockdown, but they just feel, you know, no one wants to travel. No one wants to be away from their home. While they want to be
Yeah.
here to help us, we also told both of our parents, like, stay away. We want you
Yeah.
here, but please don't come.
Yeah, exactly.
So my wife had two of her closest friends. Both were like, look, we'll either come to the house and take care of your daughter while you're at the hospital, or we'll go to the hospital with you. And that was 2 weeks before he was born. And it just so has it that as we were getting closer and closer, it was actually the day he was born, or the day before, because he was born in the morning. Both of those friends, Terry's friends, they both were like, look, we really feel uncomfortable being in the hospital because of, you know, the hospital couldn't tell us how things were going to go. They didn't know if they were going to put Terry in a room that was basically a positive section of the maternity section because they thought I had it, or are they going to put her in the negative? And if they put her in the positive, then her friends are there, and they
Right.
they were both very upset about it because they wanted to be there for her. But we're like, look, you know, what we're doing right now is we have to make decisions that are best for our families, and you have to do the same for you and your family. And we thankfully had the time to sit down and talk for a couple of days and weeks prior to, like, look, worst case scenario, you're going to be in there by yourself. So let's get you prepared for that. And if you're prepared for that, whatever else happens,
I'll fluff my pillow.
yeah, exactly. Yep. So yeah, me and my daughter, Tess, we're at home and quiet time for a day and a half, and then go pick them up and bring home the newborn and the wife, and off to the races of sleep when you can.
Yeah.
it goes by quick. So
Yeah, you're right. The first 2 weeks, man, I've already gone by real fast, and we seem to be in somewhat of a schedule, so that's good.
It's because you're so sleep deprived, you have no clue what's going on.
Yeah. Well, you guys both know. You've been there twice each, right? You each
yeah.
have two kids.
Well,
Yep.
I was one and done, so I got
Oh
twins
yeah.
on the first shot.
Oh,
So
nice. I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know if I'd rather have two at once or one 2 times.
Well, the way me and my wife and I looked at it, we didn't know any different. So,
Yeah,
it's not
that's
like we
true.
had one and like, oh, we could compare this to that.
Yeah.
So we're just, not
And
that my wife listens to the podcast or anything, but she was a badass during that whole like first year.
Yeah.
Like I had no clue what I was doing, She took the reins and kind of took care of everything and straightened it all out. So
Yeah, I gotta give my wife props too, because the first 4 or 5 days that she was home with Jack, um, I wasn't I wasn't picking him up. I wasn't even near him. So was all hours of the day was on, Jack duty, which was crazy. And then the next, on day 4 or 5, we finally all felt comfortable enough that I could pick them up with an N95 on. And
right.
thankfully, I went to the trailer I have with all my training stuff in it, and I had a couple boxes of N95s for when we do training with theatrical smoke to try and filter some of that out. And brought those home and um, had those staged around the house so I could just, wake up at 2 a.m, grab one off the nightstand. And then there's also some downstairs, and then a couple of days of that. And now we're actually settled into like, all right, I got him. You go to sleep for a couple hours. I got him while he's crying. But the first 4 or 5 days I couldn't do that. So she was a trooper, man. She did a great job.
I'm surprised they haven't called you into the lab to see if your boys got antibodies through.
Dude, we have been pushing all of our doctors to get that test, and no one, they're all like, well, we don't know where to get it or how to get it, or like, we want it. One, we want to know.
Yeah.
And two, this is a chance for you guys to see as doctors, like it either crossed through the placenta or it crossed through in breast milk, one or the other. So if they had tested him the night he was born or the morning he was born, we would have known, if it came through that way or not. But yeah, I don't know. My work has offered to test me, and they did offer, and I don't know if we're gonna wait another week, but they said that if we can't find any place else, that there's a chance that they may test the whole family. So we'll see what happens. Yeah,
I'm pretty
it's
sure.
interesting.
Sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I'm pretty sure I had this back in like late December, early January. All the same symptoms, high fever, the cough, but it lasted a couple of days, but then the fatigue lasted like 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you probably have the flu again.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, all right. So,
Yep.
I almost want to get tested to see if like I have antibodies to it,
I mean, at least it would give you a little bit of, not that you would not want it, you'd still want to use all your PPE and stuff on calls, but
Absolutely.
it would give you a little bit of that sense of, okay, I've already had it, and hopefully the immunity is going to last at least a couple months,
Right.
And that's the crazy part is, and why I think so many people are just not losing it, but just no one has those answers. For our entire lives, for the three of us, almost every disease we've had to deal with, there were knowns and unknowns because they've been around for so long.
Yeah.
And at least we knew what we didn't know, and we knew what we knew. For this, we don't know. We don't know what we don't know because we haven't seen it play out for more than 4 or 5 months now. And that's the weird part.
We had the same thing. We had a bad flu that everyone was just calling a bad flu. Come through our whole neighborhood, went through the school, of course, right?
Yeah.
Everyone had it, and my kids got it, but just like you're saying, Ron, like it followed all the symptoms. Like my kids had it for like hardly any time at all. They had like high fever for 24 to 36 hours, and they were like one and done. Then my wife got it, and that is the sickest I have ever seen her in terms of fatigue. She was falling asleep midday for 4 hours. And like it lasted like 3-4 weeks of her just being like zero energy.
Yeah.
And it was like, I've never seen her get hit like that, but everyone around was like it. One of our friends developed pneumonia from it and all this stuff. It was right before COVID sort of came out.
Yeah.
And we're a massive port and airport between Asia and Canada, where we are the one-stop shop to get to and from. So you'd think we'd be one of the first ones to get it. So I mean, I'm the same as you. I'm like, well, I wonder if it's already been through the family. It was a weird one though. Like I didn't get sick, which was interesting.
But I mean, there's a real high chance that both of you guys already had it in the house, you know? For us, I had it for a month and my wife had it for 4 days. And she had a sore throat and a cough. I had what you guys have both explained, you know? I went from a sore throat and a cough to the most intense sinus pain and pressure I've ever had, where my teeth hurt, like just moving my head side to side, my teeth and eyeballs wanted to pop out of their places. And then to days of like 2 weeks in, all I could do is lay around. I wanted to get up and do stuff, but I just, every time I'd get up, I'd get dizzy. And then even just vacuuming the living room, I would have to lay down afterwards. And then I didn't have like that shortness of breath everyone talked about unless I really went out and did something. Like I remember, Ron, me and you were actually talking on the phone one day when I was walking my daughter, pushing the stroller. And that was the first day I noticed shortness of breath. And it was because I was pushing a stroller up a hill. But I was like, man, I've never had to stop at the top of this little hill to catch my breath while we've been on this walk 100 times before. And it got worse over that. And I could feel the wheezing in my lungs. It's hard to explain, but it was deep in my lungs, and I could feel like on the end of your exhalation or the beginning of your inhalation is where I would feel the wheezing. So if I kept my breath to like the middle range of your intake and exhale, I could keep from wheezing. But 10 to 12 times a day, I would have a coughing fit where it would take me to my knees for a couple of days, where just like you couldn't catch your breath during that coughing fit. But it wasn't, you know, if it wasn't this unknown thing, I wouldn't have thought too much about it other than it wasn't going away. What was always on my mind though was hearing those stories of people that were like, oh, they were fine, and then the next day they woke up dead, right? Their wife or husband found them dead in bed, and they said they were fine the day before. The scariest part for me was the night that my daughter started coughing in the middle of the night, and it sounded like a horrible cough. Like had to go in there. She wasn't going back to sleep, and basically had to get in the rocking chair with her on my chest and keep her upright so that she could breathe without coughing and let her fall asleep. And we were laid in that rocking chair for like maybe 2 or 3 hours. And I'll tell you what, man, I guess that's, you know, parenthood seeping in. That was the first time I really felt that. Like, man, I would pay $1,000 right now for a pulse ox and a stethoscope. Just hook it up to her and see how she was doing. And the next day, you know, it sounds stupid. I've had a stethoscope in the house before, but I don't have one anymore. Next day I bought one on Amazon. And then I bought a finger pulse oximeter, but they're so back ordered it still hasn't shown up.
Yeah. I'm a person that can work up from sun up to sundown all damn day. Like, I don't stop for lunch most times. There was one day I was folding the laundry and I had to lay down and take a nap. Like, I was like, what just happened? Even my wife, she's like, you're not good.
Yeah.
I was like, I did the laundry. That was it.
That's crazy. Well, I'm
Life
glad.
is
Go ahead. Sorry.
life is slowly getting back together. We're just adapting with the kids, and I think they're excited to figure out if we're going on vacation this summer.
Yeah.
So we try to talk about that and keep their heads out of the whole, because they know what's going on. They understand it at age 11, but
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My
they
kids at 7 and 5, they don't. They're almost the worst. They understand it, but they don't understand it at all.
hmm
They hear grandma worrying like crazy, and they realize that they can't go to school and they're not allowed to see their friends and they're not allowed to do this, they're not allowed to do that. But they have no grasp or concept of what's really going on, right? But they're very aware, just the big picture, right? It's kind of
yeah.
that's the weirdest part, right? And like you say, the unknowns. It's like, well, we go on a camping trip to the same place up island every July. Well, is that still going to happen? Probably won't know
Yep.
till mid-June,
Yeah.
right? Like,
We had a
all
big
of our, yeah.
we had a big family vacation for my wife's extended family, and it's a big family. Her mom is one of 10 kids, so that whole family,
Wow.
there's over 100 of is like 130 people if you go from her grandparents down to the great grandkids now.
Jesus.
But we have a camp rented up in in Maine somewhere in August or end
Nice.
of July, and everybody's looking forward to it, and we're just hoping that we can still do it. Yeah, it was like a main house with like 6 different houses on the property, and it's nothing
Cool.
fancy by any means. It's not like you're living in nice houses, but it was going to be cool to be up there in the summer on a lake with the whole family, but not all crunched into like one small space.
Right.
And hopefully it'll still kick off and we'll still be able to get up there.
We'll have to
Guys,
talk, Jim, when it gets closer, because we usually do a main trip end of July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll shoot you the dates and we can figure out how far away time wise and distance wise.
You come out to Jordan River, you can triple the population with your family.
Someday, man. Someday we'll make it out to you. It's so fucking far away.
Nathan, I told my wife about coming out to teach with you, right? And
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, where in Canada is he?" And I told her, and she's like, "That's the other side."
She's not wrong.
Yeah.
I was like, "So that's a no?" She's like, I don't know."
She's like, not only is it the other side, it's the wrong side for you to be traveling to in the next few months.
Yeah.
You didn't show her the pictures of the palm trees, obviously.
It's Photoshop.
I did. She said it was bullshit.
I love it. Was it Jake Hoffman posted that, commented on there?
Yeah. Oh man, we speaking of Jake, I talked to him. I listened to his podcast on multiple calls today, and
Nice.
I sent him a message. I'm like, man, that's some good stuff. And I've been talking with him. I want to get him on with us sometime in the next 2 months. So hopefully that'll happen. He seems like a real cool dude.
I just texted Tim Anderson as we were starting this up, and he's
Awesome.
game to come on. So
Cool.
we'll get him on there.
Get our
I'm still
scheduling
waiting
game
to
up.
hear from. His name's Price. Craig Price is the guy that you've got labeled as Nathan's friend's dad, but
From from the stuff you were telling us about. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be really, really interesting to hear from him too.
It'd be kind of cool to get the story too from the two of them, because one was on the actual RIT team, the other was the IC at the same call. So
Yeah, it would definitely. That would be a good. I'm sure that would be a long episode, but that'd be a good one to get both of them on. So yeah, hear from both sides of the fence of the same incident.
well, you remember those pictures of the pool Mayday?
Yep.
Yeah,
Same departments.
really.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Cool. Well, I think we're coming up on about an hour here, so I think that's probably about as much as our audience wants to hear us talk about things not RIT related right now.
Probably.
But it was good catching up with you guys. I'm glad your families are healthy and well now. If they had it, that you guys have moved through it, and if not, you're staying healthy, and work's work, but it's good, and yeah.
The least listened to episode we've had.
Could be. They
It's all
don't
right.
know. They won't know if they get this far in. Then thank you guys for listening all the way through this one. While we caught up
Seriously.
and actually got to catch up with each other for an hour here. But yeah, I think
I tell everybody we're amateurs. Nathan has to use clothesline hangers up in the north there to get signal for his internet. So
I wouldn't doubt that.
No,
some
that's
days.
just to get the speaker to work.
Oh Jesus!
Cool. Well,
You gotta climb that palm tree higher to get it
yeah.
up there.
I didn't
So
think
the
palm trees were that tall.
Coconuts get too big, they start blocking the signal.
I still say Photoshop. It's all Photoshop. Oh man. Well, on that note, guys, I think this is a good place to end episode 5. So, fellas, good seeing you. Have a good night.
Likewise.
See you later.